Working in the healthcare field for me was not always bad. There were times when I was able to sleep as the patients were euthanized on hospice from drugs like morphine. As I mentioned, I would never knowingly give the drugs to suppress the patient's immune central nervous system. Even after this Caucasian nurse, who probably had a spirit talking to her, called the devil, came in and told me to give the patient more medication than needed. This was years ago. I do not wish to go into the details of it, but these are one of the many experiences that I've had working in the healthcare field. And this euthanization is still going on today. So basically, everyone involved in the field are still participating in this to one extent or another. It's not just in the state of Oregon where this can occur. The fact that we have never been in the patient's place, like a patient lying there in a hospice bed that's supposedly dying. We've never been in their place, which means we cannot say that the grimacing or the frowning that is on their face means that they're in pain and that therefore would need pain medication. I have personally sat on hospice cases where dark shadows would come in the room at certain times of throughout my 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, and I would start to pray. I would start to read my Bible, and these shadows would go away, which allowed the patients somehow, by the grace of God, thank God for that, allow the patient to live throughout my shift. I always prayed on these cases. I was like, I do not want these patients dying on me. So every time I went into work, I would pray. But this is something that's, obviously going on. And we can't say, as I mentioned, that, facial grimacing or frown, that means the patient is in pain. And in addition to these times, there were times where the feces we cleaned, obviously this is not so much a unconscious patient, but the times where the patients were more conscious, they would have feces thrown at us from the patients literally coming at our faces and all over our bodies. Of course, these patients were not in their right mind, quote unquote right minds, and others would slap, kick, punch, you name it. There was one case in particular where I cared for a patient in the nursing home where the urine from the Foley catheter splashed in my eyes. Disgusting, I know. And everyone laughed at me after hearing this story. Even the workers at the Center Care, where I went to get a checkup after the event occurred. This was not so bad because the lady in this same room as the other room, as she was in a bed across from the lady that I cared for, that the Foley urine came from. So she was, as I emptied the Foley, she actually was a patient that had shingles. This was the second lady in the room. And shingles is just a spin-off of chickenpox, the chickenpox virus, which I never had in my life. And I avoided the one man that had it in my district, like the plague, when they said that he had that as I was growing up. And here is a kicker, though, because I now have an immunity immunization card that says that I'm immune to this virus, which means that I'm not going to be getting the chickenpox or the shingles. Now, either this was from breathing in the air, the same air that the second lady in the room had, or was coming from her, or from the urine itself splashing in my eyes and going into my mucous membrane and coming in contact with that could have been the other reason why I got immune to it, being that I never got a chickenpox vaccine. Now, I did get a bunch of vaccine as a kid. I was a year old, as a matter of fact, just looking at my immunization cards, and it's laid out with all these vaccines. And so my point is, which brings me, if you have an STD or the coming in contact with a person that doesn't have it through the mucous membrane, this microbe get transferred to that person through the mucous membrane and secretions. So much so that a baby can get immunity from the mother's secretion, like colostrum, that first milk that is produced from the mother when they are born. Since this is the case, what is the point of a vaccine or vaccinating this child, this baby, at the age of 1, 2, even months into birth or ever, if it is all totally given from the mother, if it's all comes from the mother in the first place? Whatever the mother is immune to, the child will be immune to, as long as they're breastfeeding. And the point is, actually, what is the point in giving the same virus that you're vaccinating the baby against? What is the point of giving that to the child in the vaccine? They're going to be immune from the mother's milk.